everybody. Today we're live with Nolt Finance, and I'm excited for this conversation. Well, my name is Blessings Mosugu, and I know that I've been making noise about this over time. Today we want to have a very, very important conversation, and that is money. Let's talk money. The topic is 100,000 naira can change your life, and we want to show you how. Now, I know that I've been screaming 100,000 naira, but literally we're talking about the little amount of money you have saved up, not necessarily 100K, like bam, but we want to break down the amount you have that you think is not substantial enough to do something for you. But we want to let you know that how do they say it? Little drops make an ocean or something like that. And that is why we're here today. Now, this is personal to me because I've had experiences and probably sometimes I still do with money, not knowing what to do with money, or even the money disappearing from my account because I'm saving it up so that I can have a chunk of it to invest. Why I have chosen to partner with Nolt Finance. Nolt Finance is a finance technology company that focuses on loans, investments, financial advisory services, like what we're doing here. And it is also a company that operates as a licensed finance institution under the Central Bank of Nigeria. So you know that we know what we're doing here. Well, when I say we, I mean them anyway, because I'm also here to learn. But it's going to be a very exciting conversation, and I cannot wait. It's a safe space, right? We want to show you the relationship between yourself and your money. So come live, join us live, and come with your questions because I know that you have burning questions about how that 50K can work for you, how that 30K can work for you, how that 200,000 naira can work for you. This is the conversation to be, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. And of course, I have two finance experts because I know that I said that I'm here to learn. So I'm sitting down here with two finance experts who will be telling us how best to go about it going forward. Because this conversation is going to involve saving, it's going to involve investment, it's going to involve how to structure your finances in a way that you can even afford vacations and even borrowing. We're also going to be talking about borrowing, so it covers a lot, everything finances. Now, the experts that will be joining us on this very important conversation, I have to my left, or they're both to my left anyway, but I have Mr. Robert Ijere, the Executive Director, Nolt Finance Company Limited. I'm used to saying a round of applause, but I'll just clap for
I'll clap for myself.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We also have joining us the head of credit, Nolt Finance Company Limited, in person of Mr. Toluwalashe Arowo Jolu. I know, I need to be sure I got that right. Thank you so much for joining us as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I personally have been looking forward to this conversation because I know that it's something that will benefit the community, even my followers. Because most times, we have money, we make money, we have side gigs, but then it's like when you sit down to take stock of your life, you're like, where did all the money go? And I know that most times it's a temptation to want to save up a chunk of it. I don't know if it happens to a lot of people, but for me, it has to be a round figure. So, like, I want to save up a round figure, a huge round figure, so that I can then invest. But I'm excited that we're going to talk about this because we want to let people know that even the small amount that they have can work for them. So we're going to go straight into the questions, but just very quickly, house rules. If you have any questions, don't wait until the end. You can start sending in your questions. Once you send them in, they would give it to me and then I can ask the question. So you see us answering your questions in real time. So very quickly, I'll start by asking you, Mr. Robert. And the most pivotal question here today is, can a little amount actually amount to something huge? Because, like I said, many people don't know that we're pegging it at 100,000 naira, but I mean figuratively anyway. But like so many people have 50K and they're like, this is not up to 1 million. Let me just use it to do something else. Or they have 200K and they're like, it's not up to 1 million. Let me just use it to go shopping. I'm not saying shopping is bad, but is a little amount substantial enough to build wealth? That's the first question.
Absolutely. Not just is it substantial enough, it's actually important that it is a little amount because what actually builds wealth is time and discipline. That is where wealth is built. So over time, you want to be able to put away a little bit of money on an ongoing basis, on a consistent basis. So I like that we've picked 100,000 naira because it's a nice round figure, right? And it doesn't feel ridiculously challenging to be able to set aside 100,000 naira. If you set aside 100,000 naira and you have it consistent, that's the consistency, that's the discipline, and you do it over time, that is the second critical factor to building wealth. 100,000 naira compounding interest on a monthly basis over the period of 10 years, guess how much that is? You do it every month, 100,000 naira every month, and you're earning interest on it and you're compounding and you're adding to it every month. You have that discipline. Do you want to take a guess at how much it would be? Just throw a figure out there,
I
ballpark.
can try. Let's
100,000 naira, 10 years.
10 years. Let's say. I know it's a billions. Maybe 10. No, not billion.
No,
One
no,
billion.
no, no, calm down.
Eh?
I didn't say 50 years, I said
Okay.
10 years.
100 million.
So you're very close. 93 million,
Wow.
right? Now, this is the power of compounding and the power of consistency and the power of time. You double that and you make it 20 years and you get 587 million. So think about it. The first 10 years of doing that, you get 92 million. The next 10 years of doing that, you continue, you get 587 million. Look at the scales of growth we're talking about. So it is about consistency, it's about time, which is why it's so important for you to be consistent. The reason you would stay consistent is because you don't feel it. It's not as difficult to do. So that 100,000 naira is a fantastic figure because but it can be painless. I know it's not painless for everybody, but it can be painless. Reduce that 100,000 naira to 10,000 naira based off of where you stand. But let's just to choose 100,000 naira. Let's look at 587 million naira over 20 years. Just being consistent. That is if you don't add to that 100,000 naira, you don't make it 200,000 naira at some point. So those are the scales of growth you can get to with time and consistency. So it's enough. It's more than enough.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, I'm a big dreamer anyway. It would
Uh,
be nice to be in billions, but I mean, this is huge because
yeah.
nobody would have thought that 100,000 naira over 10 years can amount to that much. And that leads me to my next question, Mr. Turuwalashe. We've talked about time and consistency. So apparently, it's not just about making the money or saving the money. You require time and consistency, just like every other discipline. Do we now say that the challenge with people that struggle with knowing what to do with the money is not really the money they have. It's not really making the money, but it's the discipline too. Because it's actually very easy to say 100K every month, but then when your car breaks down this month, you're like, okay, maybe let me skip this month, or something happens this month, you're like, okay, I'll skip this month. So do we now say that the challenge is not making the money, but the discipline to actually consistently build the money?
Yeah, the discipline, right? So saving 100,000 naira every month. So it's not that you are saving. There's a difference between saving and investing. So what Mr. Rob is saying is investing. If you are investing consistently 100,000, you get to those figures. But aside from investing 100,000, for instance, citing an example of the car that broke down, you can take from your savings to repair your car. But if you keep a consistent, disciplined attitude of investing, you get to those figures that he has mentioned. So there should be your investments, there should be your savings, right? And there should be the money you can use for your regular day-to-day activities. So apart from the discipline, people should also understand there's a difference between investing and saving. So that's what people should know.
Okay, that's very important to know because I mean many people can't even differentiate between saving the money and investing.
Mhm.
They feel like saving the money is investing for their future, which is technically correct, but it's not investment. It's not actively working for you. So that will bring me to my next question, and that will be to you, Mr. Robert. And the next question is: when someone receives money, whether salary, business profit, or say gift or something, a side hustle income, what should they think about first before deciding what to do with it? And for the very religious people, yes, you can remove your tithes, but what should they think about first before deciding on what to do with the money?
Yeah. So I would say first things first, put out the fires first, right? So think about the basics, food, think about rent, think about the things you actually transport, things that you actually have to pay for to continue your life going. So think about your standard fires. Think about the debts you have. Because yes, it's important to save, it's important to invest, but if you're paying debt of 40% per year and you're saving and getting a return of 20% per year, you better face that debt before you face the investing, right? So it's about understanding what you need to focus on first and how you prioritize that list. Now, if you have an income, what you need to do is figure out how do you divide that income with the, first of all, essentials. Like I talked about the fires, you put out those fires first, and then what is left over should first go into your investment bucket, then into your savings bucket. Because I actually look at investments as being more important. A fantastic distinction that Tolu made. I actually look at investing as more critical than saving. The reason is because investing is growing, saving is growing, but much, much more slowly. Investing can get you to a point, if you don't have any emergencies we're talking about, investing can get you to a point where the dividends of your investments can sort out the need for your savings. So it is important to also understand and segment what is needed, when is it needed, and you use those to determine what you allocate to where. It's also important to distinguish between your actual income. So on a month-to-month basis, you know this is what's coming in, right? When you get bulk funds, you don't treat those the same way. So when you get a bonus, when you get from your, like you said, from your side hustle, when you mini hammer or mini hit, you you treat those funds very differently. You don't treat them as I'm going to go and buy a new phone. You don't treat them as I'm going to go and buy a new car. You treat them as this is going into my investments because this is going to supercharge my investments. You can divide it between your investments. You can divide it between your investment and your savings. You can divide it between your investments, your savings, and small, shalaye. You can do all of that. But what's important is understanding how you prioritize those funds. And those funds in particular, those, once in a while funds should always be prioritized in order of investments, then savings, and then depending on how loose you're feeling with it, you can allocate some of that to your new phone or your new whatever.
Okay, so I think I want to ask a follow-up question before I come to Mr. Tolwaj. And I think I speak for majority of Nigerians when I say that some people can hardly relate to the conversation of shy investment or even saving, to be honest, because it feels like the economy of Nigeria now has eliminated the middle class. So there's whether you are wealthy or you're not. And unfortunately, there are people who struggle. So there's a struggle to get a job. Then you get a job, and the amount you're paid is so meager. You can't even the basics. And I mean, I think everybody has experienced this at one point in life. Even the basics, the salary is not enough to cover it. Sometimes you wonder, how am I spending 500K on transport and my salary is 450K? So those are some of the practical challenges that people face.
Yeah.
And then there are people who, on the other side, they're earning this amount of money and they've made a saving culture. But let's not pretend like we've not had a sweep of inflation, price hike and everything. And now they've had to adjust. And so the temptation, or it's not even temptation, it's just the reality of putting a pause on investment and just focusing on what really matters. How do we then advise those category of people, which is like a large number of Nigerians right now, on saving, investment first, to even before you even talk about saving? Some people have to just choose one. That's the
Absolutely.
truth. So how do we advise them to manage finances so much so that they can get enough to invest and save?
Okay, so that is a very tricky question.
I know.
Because we're all talked about the sheer erosion of capital has been brutal over the last few years. It's accelerated. The true value of the naira has dropped. So when somebody like me is saying, "Oh, invest," a lot of people are saying, "What are you talking about? Invest how?" Exactly. I'm talking about actually, and things like that. What are you actually on about? Where, like you just said, I'm spending 500K on transport. Meanwhile, it's 400K I'm earning. So there's going to be that challenge. Now, I think the message that I would put out there is it's not really about the figure. So we started this conversation with 100K, right? It's not really about the figure. I think the message we're trying to put out there is the discipline, is the consistency, because that is essentially what is going to get you to a point of there's always going to be pressures, right? There's the creep of a new wage. When people's salaries go up within 3 months, that's the standard. Within 3 months of your salary going up, you are wanting another increase. So you're happy on the day it's increased, but it's only 3 months before your life catches up to that. Your expenses catch up to that as well. Now, that's always going to be the case. There is the standard inflationary pressures that we all face. But what is also going to happen is that when your income goes up, your expenses are going to go up as well. While I can't answer for everybody, I can say that if you are in a situation where you can, it's such a standard thing to say live beneath your means. The reason you're doing that is because you are trying to ensure your future. The reason I am saying investment is more important than saving is because you're taking advantage of time, you're taking advantage of your consistency. And because you're doing that, you're growing that at a faster pace to be able to escape the situation we're talking about where inflation is catching up to you and overtaking you, and you are basically struggling to be able to make your standard day-to-day payments. But you have to do something to pull yourself out because unfortunately we all live in Nigeria, right? The challenges are the challenges. And if we don't have this income, if we don't build these investments, nobody's going to come save us. So it's the attitude that I think we all need. Not all of us can have it. I do fully acknowledge the fact that some people cannot understand what I am saying or are not in a position where they can take advantage of the push for investment or the push for savings and the discipline. I do understand that. But I will also finish with, if we're talking about 100,000, we could also be talking about 10,000. We could also be talking about 1,000. By the same scales of measure, if you reduce it was 100,000 we started with, right? You take that to say 10,000 a month, same discipline, same numbers, and that takes you to 53 million naira over 20 years, 10,000 a month. So whereas it's difficult, there's always something to be able to do. It's about the discipline. I think that's the real message that I can push through. I wish I could solve
I mean, to
the
be
inflationary
honest, I
challenges.
genuinely love that answer because I needed to ask that question because that's the reality we're facing. But the answer gives a depth because Nigerians are good at adapting. And as much as we're talking about the high rate of unemployment, you go out on the street and you see the youth, the phones they use, or the hair they wear. So it just means that if you want something, you can actually afford it. And that's where the scale of preferences come in. So I like that your answer was very balanced because many people say, oh, we don't have a job. How are you talking about investment? But you have a smartphone that may be more pricey than what you can actually afford. Let's be honest with ourselves. So, and that brings us back to the conversation of thinking about the priority before actually going into it. So I don't know if you want to speak to this particular question.
Yeah, so um, many people say your salary can never be enough. So regardless of what you earn, you have to be disciplined and say even if it's 1,000 I'm investing every month, there are a lot of apps that you can use to caution yourself and discipline yourself to ensure that you are on track. So out of the 12 months, you have invested 12,000 naira in a year. At the end of the year, it's not going to be that 12,000 naira you made there compared to just keeping that 12,000 naira in your bank. Now it'll probably even be 11,000 naira or something. But if it's an investment, it's 12,000 naira or something that's increased. So it's just a matter of discipline. And yeah, there are issues, you have things you have to solve, health, feeding, transportation. But no matter what you earn, it's still never going to be enough. So why not just close your eyes and just do it?
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. Let me come back to Mr. Robert, and I know that you've talked about how to categorize this into priorities, right? But I want us to be more practical with it. So let's even use the 100,000 naira as a benchmark. How do people um, budget this particular amount that you can use it for your expenses and it can also still work for you? I want us to be practical with it.
Okay, so excuse me, do you mean 100,000 naira is the totality of your income and you want to basically divide?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll change from person to person, right? Because some people have emergencies like I mentioned, or sorry, they have fires like I mentioned earlier that have to be put out first. Some people have expenses that other people don't have. Some people have family they need to take care of. But if you're earning 100,000 naira, you first have to assess, and this is something that you can do on an individual basis. You need to draw up a budget, a monthly budget to say, look, what are my expenses? What am I spending on transport? What am I spending on food? What am I spending on electricity? What am I spending on all of these things? And I mean, 100,000 naira is not that much to be dividing in so many different ways. But if you can get away on that 100,000 naira with removing 10,000 naira first, because you know that the balance of the 100,000, the rest of the 90,000 naira can sort out most of the other things that you need to do. That's what you should do. It is the 10,000 naira, because something that's critical is it should be as painless as possible. The reason for that is so you can keep that discipline realistically. Because if you're earning 100,000 naira and you want to be aggressive initially, and you say, okay, you're going to carry 60,000 naira, you're going to tighten your belt and survive on 30,000 naira every month. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where you go joke. You are not going to be able to do that anymore. And then the moment you miss 1 month, you're much more likely to miss all the other months. So the idea behind that 100,000 naira, 10,000 naira from the 100,000 naira, it should be painless enough that you automate it. It should be painless enough that it's going out and it never existed to you. You want to forget this money actually is being taken out. You should look at it as taxes. Now, what you're doing is you are taking taxes so you can invest in your own future from yourself. So it should be going into, and again, because of the argument between saving and investing for me is one that I feel strongly about, because it's very hard to outstrip inflation with your savings. Like Tolujo said, it's much easier to outpace inflation with investments. That is, I think, where I would come down on it. But something as simple as 10% of the 100,000 naira, if you're lucky enough to be earning 1 million naira a month, then it should be 100,000 naira of that. But that is where you should start. And this is to go to investment. So it's consistent, so it's compounding, so it's growing the most aggressively. And most importantly, it is outpacing inflation, because inflation is chasing all of us.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And I mean, while you were talking, I think a question came to mind of which directed to Mr. Toluwalache. And this is a very practical question. I don't know if it happens to everyone, but I'm going to put myself on the spot because it used to happen to me. So, for every situation, there are extremists, right? At some point in my life, I used to be a savings addict. And what I mean is, I would get money, and instead of taking out the essentials, so I can sort out the essentials, because of that need to want to compound so much money at once, I will save everything. And then I will go as far as maybe even borrowing to fix the issues. I'm being very serious because I'm trying to, compound the money as much as possible. Like the money is coming in, and just sometimes I go as far as locking it up. And I realize that I don't have money for the basic necessities. Yeah. So can we speak to that? Because there are people who are also savings addicts. They just want to save and save. And you see that they're living, and I'm not saying, I mean, of course, it's good to live beneath your means, but there are people who are so frugal that they can't even afford 3 square meal. It's not that they can't afford it, they don't want to afford 3 square meal. And so they save and save and save all their money. And their reality is not a very good place to be.
Yes, you're not lying. I've been in the room with people like that also, right?
You are now.
Too much of
Just committed.
practically.
You confessed.
So, like they'll say, too much of everything is not good. There should be control to different things. Things should be done responsibly. So it's not only alcohol they say you should drink responsibly. Even savings should be responsible, right? The same thing with borrowing, right? So, but if there's a goal, especially if it's a short-term goal, you could do it. But if you are just trying to invest for a long-term future, it's best to do it gradually and don't become hungry. Don't look unkept because you are trying to invest. If you're hungry, you can't think or you can't probably make more money. You might not be able to be creative when you have, for instance, your kind of job now. You need to be creative. You have to be innovative. But if you're very hungry, you're not looking good. You won't be able to attract people that will call you to jobs, right? You might not be able to even wear good clothes, but your account is smiling, but you are not happy inside. And especially when you say you have locked it, and most when you lock all these investments, no matter the situation, you cannot get them out. So it's best to be responsible with it. If it's 20% you can do 20%. If it's 40% you can do, especially when there's a bulk money that does come. Like you can just do 40%. I know that this remaining 60% I can use to sort out my bills, because if you keep on saving, your bills will never disappear. You have to pay those bills. So you just have to be responsible about it and know yourself. That's the best way I think you can tackle such a situation. But some of the everything is never good.
Okay. I think let me also ask you, I'm sorry, some of these things that I've experienced. So I'll ask you a follow-up question. Um, investing in your looks versus investing in your future. That's a conversation, especially young people. Sometimes they get confused because they tell you looking good is good business. So
Mhm.
some will even tell you dress for the position you want to be in the next 10 years. You don't start dressing like your CEO. You know, you're buying designer clothes and everything, but your account is crying. But you genuinely feel like investing in your looks, when people see that you look good, they tend to give you more gigs, especially when it comes to side gigs. Maybe
Mhm.
you're selling designer bags. You also want to carry designer bags, or you know, you want to be. You're always in rooms where HNIs are. You want to look the part, which is not bad, but people don't know how to balance it. So right now, many people feel like it's an either or situation. You either invest in your look so that you can get the chunk of money you're looking for, or you just invest in your future and maybe just forget about your looks. Do you want to speak to that very quickly?
Yeah, so you need it too. You need to invest in your looks. You need to invest in your future. So investing in your looks, you don't need to buy a new dress or a new suit every month, right? You can do once in a quarter, so that you have money
For
to do
male and
other things
female.
for male and female,
Okay.
right? So you can say this 10% from my salary, I've gotten, let's say March, for instance, which is the end of one quarter. You go to the market, you shop. Another thing is that people don't know the price of what you are buying. So you could go into the trenches and you get something very
Exactly.
good. It doesn't need to be designer, it doesn't need to be very expensive. It just needs to look good. Uh, have a good base, use deodorant, iron your clothes very well. Nobody knows if what you're wearing is just 10,000, and maybe your CEO is wearing something worth 2 million. You will not, you might not be able to tell, except someone has a very good eye for those kind of things, which is they are rare. Especially there are people in that industry, they can tell. But a normal person will not tell if you have bought your suit for 5,000. All you need to do is to look good. But it's also good to invest in your future, because if you don't invest in your future or invest in yourself, you might not be able to raise your earning power. For instance, you have finished school with HND and you never uh, sought to getting a BSc. The amount of money you can earn will be limiting, except maybe you go viral overnight or things like that. But if you decide to stick to maybe a career path, professional career path, you will need to also invest in yourself in terms of maybe getting a certification, learning a skill, so that if you're earning 100,000 naira this year, maybe next year you can earn 200, and like that, your income is increasing. You can also increase your investments, your savings, and you can take care of your bills better. So I think that's a good way to sort that out.
Can I weigh in as well on that?
Yes, please.
I think it's a fantastic question because um, it allows you to put into context certain things. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, he owns Berkshire Hathaway. Well, he has one of the largest investors and is the founder of Berkshire Hathaway. He has lived in the same house uh, that he lives in now. He's, I think, 92 or 93 now. And he has lived in that same house for the last 50 years. He's one of the richest men in the world. He's worth over $200 billion. He has driven. Well, he doesn't drive anymore because he's in his 90s now. But before he stopped driving, to the best of my recollection, he drove a car for about 20 years, the same car for about 20 years every single day. So there's something called the the rich man mentality, the true rich man mentality, rich woman too. So the rich person mentality is one where you have nothing to prove. True wealth has nothing to prove.
Please say
So
that louder for those at the back.
true wealth has nothing to prove because if you are interested in really building your future, if you're interested in really being wealthy, true wealth, as opposed to show wealth that a lot of people seem to be focused on, then you're not interested in just trying to look the part for the purposes of looking the part. Because when you look the part and your account is screaming, your account is empty, who are you deceiving? You're going to get home at night and be crying. Meanwhile, you can, like Tolu said, it's not about actually looking terrible and looking unkempt. If you can find a balance, just know what the balance is. The balance should be much more heavily weighted to what the real substance of your net worth is going to eventually be, which is the putting things away, the savings, the investing, your financial health, and then obviously take care of yourself as well. That one, it does have value. It's just where the balance is where you really should be focusing.
I wish I could just leave here and just go and start right there because it's actually very insightful. The answers to these questions questions. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation because many people get carried away by the desire, especially in the social media age, the desire to want to show off. You get a little. I like the saying that if you can't afford it 3 times, then you can't buy it. You genuinely cannot afford it.
Yeah.
But you have enough money for beds, you buy beds. There's this trend. It's not bad, but sometimes when I see it, that's what comes to my mind. When people rent a house and they say the only amount I had was the money for the rent, and then they're sleeping on the floor. So we need better planning. We need to, because many people just want to prove a point.
Yeah.
And we don't have to.
Sorry, funny thing about the rent is that people typically go and pay rent for a property, and all they know is that first year's rent.
Yes.
Always think about when you're paying rent and picking a house and what rent you're going to be paying. Always think about the second and third year's rent, because the first one is easy to pay. Is when the first one starts counting before you even moved in. And by month six, you're having palpitations, trying to think of where's the next rent coming from. That shouldn't have been the choice you made. It shouldn't have been all your money you spent on that rent.
True. And it's funny because most times when people are renting properties, it's only the landlords that have the foresight. So they're asking questions. Where do you work? How much do you earn? And even the tenants are upset. Why is he asking me that question? And they're like, we just want to make sure you can pay the rent more than once.
Absolutely.
So it's a very important point. So I want to also talk about that. The question is directed to you, Mr. Robert. Unrealistic expectations. For example, me, they asked me a question. I
Billions.
But funny as it sounds, many people have, especially when it comes to investments, there are people who believe that if I'm going to save for 10 years and I'm getting like 3 million, it's not in billions. Why am I saving? Do you get?
Absolutely.
Or many people even feel like if I'm going to invest and I'm not making trillions, why am I investing? So people have unrealistic expectations. And that's why many times we fall prey of this money doubler scam, right? If I say people should bring 10K and by the end of the year you get maybe 100K, they're like, you're not talking millions. I want 10,000 naira for 2 million, So how do we manage unrealistic? Because now, especially in this part of the world, when you say investment, people are expecting cash out, like quick money. If I'm giving you 100K, I'm expecting nothing less than 500K. I don't want to know how you did it. Do you get? So how do we manage those unrealistic expectations when it comes to investments? Because sometimes people would rather save than invest because of this mindset.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not getting enough money, if I'm getting only 2%, what's 2.5%, what's 3%, I'd rather just keep my money.
Yeah.
How do we handle that?
Brilliant. Fantastic that you bring this up because it's important. We get these conversations. We have to face these conversations on a daily basis as well. And it is extremely, what you're talking about is called Ponzi schemes. Like a rattle off a long list of places that people have been burnt before. Now, the funniest part is that a lot of those people, they will be caught again because for them, that is the only way to invest. It must be, you are doubling my money. And my message to everybody is loud and clear. If it seems too good to be true, it is too good to be true. It's very easy to find somebody that's going to tell you that, we'll double your money in 6 months, you'll be getting your dividends. If that is the system they're proposing, trust me, it is only a matter of time before they say, oh, sorry, our system was down, our network was down. 1 month turns into the second month. Oh, we're getting ready. We're fighting with our bank. Our bank is one that held our funds. And in the third month, they go quiet. This is a story that we've heard over and over and over again. We've heard of CBEX, we've heard of MMM. I think there was MMM2. There's so many different ones. And you keep asking yourself, how do people keep falling prey to these things? And it is because, unfortunately, Nigeria has trained us. Because we talked about inflation just now. So I don't want to just necessarily put it on the people that fall prey to it. Nigeria has trained us that if today I'm buying a bag of gari for this amount, in a year, I'm going to be buying it for more than twice the cost. What that means is it ingrains in us this need to outstrip that return and make sure that we're able to afford it. So we're looking for aggressive returns. Unfortunately, because in the space at the same time, people have seen the opportunity to exploit Nigerians who are hungry for these types of returns. So there's an entire industry, an entire scam industry that has risen to be able to take advantage of these people who are just desperate for higher returns. So I'm not going to put it all on them. either. Nigeria has trained us to all be desperate for that high return. However, the sad fact or the sad truth is that there's no shortcut. It is, if it seems too good to be true, it is. You have to be realistic in what your expectations are. Otherwise, that 100K we're talking about that you put away over and over and over again could be zero as well. So the investments I am talking about training yourself and disciplining yourself to go after are investments that are exclusively risk free. They are safe. You will know where and when your money is coming. You will be able to plan to the fact that your money is going to be growing and returning. We at Nolt Finance are a CBN licensed institution. Now, there are a lot of institutions that are finance companies in Lagos that don't have the same license we have. The reason we were so particular and intentional was because we wanted our integrity to be clear to everybody. We wanted everybody to understand that we're not just a regular finance company. We are the ones that are willing to put ourselves through the ringer. Our regulator is very, very stringent in permitting people to hold and possess a license. And for us, that is something we embrace because we want to be held to account. We want everybody in our industry to be held to account. One of our biggest frustrations is knowing that there are companies in the space that call themselves finance companies that are promising returns that we know are absolutely unrealistic, and they're doing other things with your funds other than what they say they are. So it's a very dangerous space for people to be in. It's a very dangerous thing for people to be getting involved in as well. And all we can do is try as much as possible to scream as loud as we can. Be very, very careful. Look for the license, look for the institution. And when you are promised those kind of returns, carry your shoes and run.
True, very
Yeah.
true. I mean, I think now you would understand why every 5 seconds I say that we here are a licensed financial institution under the Central Bank of Nigeria because integrity is very important for us. And I think that a lot of people are also out there looking for valid, platforms where they can invest their money because most people jump on the first offer they get and then it turns out to be a scam. But let's talk about goals, and I'll channel my next question to you. Now, we're talking about invest your money, invest your money, invest your money. But then, does investment really work if your goals are not clear? So let's long-term investment because I mean your goals might even change. You might have sense before that 10 years is over. But let's talk about 6 months investment. Some people invest without clear goals. And then when they make the money, they make the little interest on it. They still squander everything and start from ground zero. So let's talk about goals, setting clear goals. What can you say to that?
You know, we live in a time where investment is sort of trendy. So some people don't really know why they are investing, right? They just believe that my guy is investing.
Yeah.
Let me also invest, maybe because they can.
It sounds nice to say
Yeah.
I have stock.
Exactly, exactly. And now that stock is very accessible to all Nigerians,
Yeah.
right? Rather than some few years back, it might be a catchword for them. So, but if you don't have a reason why you are investing, it doesn't help you to be determined to get to that end goal. So, but if you know that I'm investing because I want to own a house that I'll leave for my children, I'm investing maybe because I want to go and do my masters abroad. I want to do something. Let it be an end goal to why you're investing. It makes the destination or the journey sweeter. But if you're just doing it for doing sake, it will be easy for you to break the investment and just probably use the money for something else that will not be productive to you. So, but like everybody, or would I say most people have a new Year resolution, right? They say, this year I want to achieve this. So it should also be something you should take into your investment. I want to achieve this with my investment in the next 10 years. I want to be able to invest so that I don't have any issues paying for my children's school fees. Something should just be at the back of your mind that you are targeting, right? It shouldn't just be a blank journey. So I think there should be something attached to that investment, and you can have more than one investment if you don't want to tie all the goals together. Because I don't think there's anybody that has only just one goal, right? So you could have multiple investments and say, okay, this is for me to travel around the world maybe when I retire, and this is for me to buy a house, this is for me to even be able to give my grandkids something. But just have something at the back of your mind most importantly, it should be written so that you can see your goals, right? Thank you.
All right. I like that. And I'm going to stay as maybe not as a follow up, but something that I feel like you'd be in the right position to answer. And that's about borrowing. When we say borrowing, many people think it's from a pit of hell. It's a conversation that should not be had. In fact, borrowing is associated with poverty and being broke, sapa, you know. But what people don't understand is even the rich men borrow.
Mhm.
Many people, let me not say everybody, there are people who are allergic to borrowing, but many people borrow over the course of their lives. So, about borrowing, when does it make sense to borrow?
So, like you said, the rich men borrow, they even borrow more, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
borrow hefty amounts of money. That is why they stay rich, right? So, because it is better to use someone else's money to take risk than your money. If you take risk with another person's money, you will know that you can take your time to sort out your indebtedness, right? So, but like we mentioned about investing and saving earlier, when I said that you have to be responsible about it, borrowing also has to be a responsible thing that you have to do. There should be a reason why you need to borrow that money. You should not borrow to look rich, because why you look rich, maybe as your salary enters, somebody is sweeping it out immediately and you are not happy. So there should be a reason why you borrow, either for a personal goal or for a business goal. For a business goal, you are trying to improve your stock, you are trying to maybe market yourself better, you are trying to get in more hands to help in a business, you're trying to acquire or help your production more efficient. There should be a reason why you need that money. And most importantly, there should also be a clear path of how you want to repay, because there's no joy for a lender and a borrower for them to be chasing each other. If you borrow, pay as I when you should borrow what you can easily afford. And for a lender, anybody that lends wants customers that will come and borrow and repay without so much hassle, right? Because even the more you borrow, sometimes companies will give you incentives like we do here at Nolt. The more you borrow, it gets to some points that we get to give you some concessions so that it becomes like we are part of your growth, right? So, but if you are borrowing without any reason, it doesn't make any sense to you as a person. The lender will request for his money,
Yeah.
regardless of what you use to do. If you use to marry second wife, there's no concern the
They will not
lender.
collect your
You
wife, they
must
steal
pay.
money.
Exactly.
You must
You
pay
don't
back.
collect wife as collateral.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't need to be responsible. Have a reason why you need the money and have a clear path of how you want to repay the money.
Okay, one more follow up question. And I think that this is a question that bugs a lot of people. When it comes to capital, starting business, if if it's something that you can afford, which is better? Do you, because you mentioned something about, being better to start or borrow someone else's money, invest in someone else's money. So which is better for starting a business? Is it a capital you can afford or borrowing?
So it depends on the kind of business you want to do. There are some businesses that do not need a lot of money to start, except especially businesses that are service driven, right? But if it's a business that you need to buy things to sell or you need to buy things to use in producing, it's a balance is better. Use some part of your money and borrow the rest. But if you feel that you are so afraid of borrowing, borrowing is not bad, right? Most of the countries abroad, UK, US, you could have you could move into a new house today without any cash. Everything is on credit, right? But if we had had a good data capturing system in Nigeria from maybe inception, maybe in 1960s, I don't think people will really be afraid of borrowing, right? But it's because we don't have good data in the country. It's hard to get your money back, right? So, but um, for a business, a mix is better, because if the business should go bad, you might be in a very bad place. You might not have anything to fall back on. But if you know that you borrowed some part of it, you still have some money that you are kept. You can use it to try another means of restarting a business while you are sorting some part of the loan and things like that. But if you use only your money, it could burn you. It could burn you at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you for creating that balance. I'm about to think of what business I want to start. But let me come to Mr. Robert now. I want us to talk about common mistakes when it comes to earning money, saving money, investing money. There's some common mistakes that people make. So I want us to talk about those. What are those common mistakes?
Um, I think the easiest to jump on is we're talking about borrowing money just now. We're talking about borrowing money just now, and if you're borrowing as a startup, pretty much what Tolu was just saying is start with family and friends. If it's a startup and you know it's a viable business you're trying to build, maybe you shouldn't go seek credit first. The reason is because at that point, that is when there's the highest potential risk for your business to fail.
Yeah.
So there's a huge percentage of startups that actually eventually fail or end up failing within the first 2 years. Now, if you're starting with family and friends, if you're bootstrapping it, if you're watching what your costs are going to be, and that's where you're taking the risk. Now, worst case scenario is your brother that borrowed you money won't talk to you again for the next few months. Eventually, family is family, he'll forgive you. It's one thing to lose his money. If you lose the money of an institution, now that institution has taken that money from investors, borrowers, shareholders. So that institution is bound to coming to meet you to say, yeah, we know you lost the money in a business, so sorry, but pay us back with our interest. So that's not the timing. The timing is not right. So borrowing is important, but the timing for a business is absolutely key. You might not be at the point of maturity where you should be borrowing yet. So assess that and assess what happens when things go left. Um, and that's when you decide whether or not you want to borrow. With regards to investing, I think one of the biggest challenges that people have is understanding. I think one of the themes of this conversation has been how small or how big does it have to be? And it's not necessarily about a particular an actual figure. It's about how does it relate to you. If you're earning $1 million a month, what percentage of your income are you spending or are you putting aside for investments or savings? That percentage should I must keep repeating should be painless as is possible, because that is what's going to keep you consistent. So a lot of people think, well, they have to get the 1 million naira credit and invest before they now talk about investing, and then they go and invest 900,000 naira of the 1 million naira. That's not sustainable, and that's going to be painful. So you're not going to keep up with that. You're not going to maintain that. You're eventually going to fall off, and that 900,000 naira you've invested is the day you want to spend something or your car has gone bad or something. You're going to go tap into that. What that means is the day after you've tapped into that, that investment doesn't exist anymore. It never really did. So, also understanding what the discipline behind investing is and should be is critical. You need to understand that it should be as painless as possible so you are able to keep it as consistent as possible, because it needs to be consistent. And for context, I will say that most of my conversation around investing today has been around fixed term investments that are compounding and earning steady interest. One of the reasons I'm doing that is because that is one of the safest forms of investments you can have. It's guaranteed returns. There's no stocks are actually the equity markets right now. Everybody knows because everybody's been hearing about all the different equities that are coming on the market. Everybody's been hearing about what the stock market has been doing since the year started. It is huge opportunities. But also understand when you're investing in the stock market, what goes up can come down. So if it goes up today, it can actually come down tomorrow. So are you also prepared for that?
Crazy.
Exactly. Are you also prepared for that? We've all seen those cycles play out where I mean everybody jumped in. Now if you get in at the top
It's
and
sometimes when you enter that it's not good.
exactly, you'll be saying, the world is looking for me.
You reach my thought.
Exactly. As I enter now. So there's also that to keep in mind where the type of investing you're doing is also key. I absolutely believe that if you are able, you should invest in multiple different instruments. So I believe you should invest in equities. So I am partial to fixed term investments because they are nice, safe, and most importantly, boring. So they are able to grow quietly. Now, there's equities, so you can actually invest in shares, you can invest in treasury bonds, you can invest in so many different things. The most important thing is the discipline. The amounts doesn't matter. The amount absolutely doesn't matter because it's very personal and subjective. So the amount I can afford to invest on a monthly basis is nothing as I don't know what you can invest every month, but the way you are talking about how I used to invest before, I don't know. So
It's
people,
trial and error.
and me, my own is probably small. Our own is small, but we don't know. So, but what A can invest, B cannot invest, and vice versa. So it's very important to understand that it's a very personal thing, and you can always start at any point in time. It's not you don't have to wait. We used 100,000 naira in this conversation. We've used 10,000 naira in this conversation. You are saying you used to invest 900,000 naira. So
Who said?
did you say 900,000 naira? I thought she said 900,000.
I know.
I'm sorry. I that's why I was saying that. But point being that it doesn't matter how much. It just what are you able to do in the most painless way possible, because that's what keeps you consistent. So there's never a right time. Now is the right time.
Perfect. They said the best time to
Plant
plant
a
a
tree.
tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is
Right
now.
now.
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
So before we go into audience questions, if there are any, I still have some more questions anyway. I want you to maybe, in a way of final advice
Mhm.
to the audience. So let me start with you. What would you say in terms of investing, saving? What would you tell the audience, especially the young audience that maybe may be confused as to where to start?
So just start small. Start from the place that you are. As life goes by, as you grow, you can always increase that. And don't invest or save everything that you earn. You need to pay your bills. You need to be able to get yourself to work. Um, take care of yourself, family. If you have kids, pay fees and all. So just do it little by little, regardless of what you earn.
Yeah.
Right? I've heard different programs that how can I use copper save? That money is too small, blah blah. But we have some coppers that save almost everything. So, right? We know that yes, there are some coppers that can get um, good jobs that will give them an extra salary. Some might not even get any other job apart from maybe their place of primary assignments. But regardless of what you earn, just save and invest little by little. Like I mentioned earlier, regardless of your earnings, it will never be enough because if you earn 1 million naira today, your expenses is probably be 2 million naira that same month because you want to improve your standard of living. So, but if you cannot save when your money is small, it will also be very hard to save or invest when your money is bigger. So that would be my advice to the younger ones.
I mean, I think I've
You
kind of
have
been
actually.
I've been hammering on the same thing. To make it as simple as possible, to make it as short as possible. There will never be a perfect time, so starts now.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, I mean, that's the best way to end the conversation anyway. Like we said, this is a safe space. You can ask your questions. You can bring up scenarios if you want us to demystify it for you. Bring your 10K. Let's tell you how to do it. Not let's them. I'll tell you how to spend it. But I mean, let's know what your concerns are. Let's know what your issues are. And there are also some questions. I mean, just you can drop your comments in the chat box. What's one money habit that you're currently trying to improve? How do you need help in improving that? If you had extra money today, what would you do with it? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it good hair or is it good investment? What's the biggest mistake people make when they receive small money? What's the biggest mistake you make when you receive some small amount? You know, there's some people that categorize if it's not 1 million naira, then I can spend it on anything, or if it's not 100K, I can spend it on anything. But they don't know that that little amount is what compounds.
Yeah.
You know, so there's also the question of, do you think small money can really make a difference? I mean, based on everything that you've heard. So we want you to drop your comments, keep the comments coming in the comment section, and your questions as well. We'd like to get your questions. We have some questions already, I believe. So the first question here is, I don't know if they asked. I'm seeing numbers. Give me 10. Okay, they didn't mention the name of the person the question is directed at, but let me just read it out. So it says, let's test the categorical imperative. Let's test the categorical imperative conception of itself, the idea of growth. Is it morally permissible to have a profit worth $460 million after a 20-year investment? Suppose you've invested $30,000.
Can we take that question again?
I think this person even read the
Because
dictionary.
the preamble is, yeah.
I know. Okay, so it says, let's test the category. I'll try and break it down because I am a journalist, I'm a communicator. So
Please
let me
communicate
get
it.
to work.
Mhm.
Let's test the categorical imperative conception of itself. Meaning, let's be practical.
Mhm.
Oh my God. The idea of growth. Is it morally permissible? That means that is it morally acceptable
Mhm.
to have a profit worth $460 million after a 20-year investment, supposing you've invested 30,000 naira? So I think this person is not even asking if it's possible. The person is asking
It's
if
morally.
it's
Morally
allowed.
correct. I'm not sure on an investment.
Another more
That,
questions. Okay.
I'm not sure that's on an investment too. I don't know if you want to take this as well, but I'm not sure if on an investment there is, as long as it's a safe investment and you don't go and invest in something illegal, there is anything morally reprehensible about an investment. So I'm not sure I got that
And
one.
like you mentioned about fixed deposits, equities, and stocks.
Mhm.
I don't think we mentioned any other type of investment.
Yeah, exactly.
So those are morally all right.
Mhm.
Ex- Except you are putting your money in something illegal,
Mhm.
right? So, but if the person is asking about morals, yes, whatever a finance house is doing with your money, I believe should be moral enough for you to be able to have peace of mind to use your income.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, based on some of the events that I have moderated, I know that there are, for the Muslim sect,
Yeah.
there's the non-profit investment.
Yeah.
So many Muslims would rather have the non-profit investment.
Mhm.
So I think that that's the line. That
If that's where he was going, then that is something that is a growing industry, because non-interest banking is it's growing in Nigeria. Some finance institutions at Nolt, we're actually developing a non-interest, Islamic friendly product where we are very clear about where your money goes and what type of lending your money gets involved in, what type of investments your money gets involved in as well. So, and I know we're not the only one. So there's a lot of institutions that are currently doing that now. The return from that perspective is what is critical is what were the funds used for and how did the funds grow to get to that point. And I believe there's a lot of institutions in Nigeria and soon to be Note as well that have those types of products.
Okay.
Yeah.
So look out for non-products anyway. So there's this question, and I mean, I don't know if I don't understand because it's a financial jargon or I just don't understand. But let me read it out. Maybe
Communicate it, please.
I'm trying to. Okay, so it says, you were pointing out, I tagged someone, you were pointing out that suppose we invest 100,000 in a business, would it convert or divert? Is that a financial jargon?
I'm not sure I.
Okay, while we try to understand this question.
I'm not sure I get that one.
Yeah.
But
Maybe the person should rephrase.
Okay, please, if you can rephrase
rephrase
the question.
yeah.
I think we should use simpler English. I know I look like I can speak big grammar, but let's understand so that we don't have to demystify the question first before answering it. Okay, so there's another question here that says someone wants to borrow money for an urgent need. They didn't mention the need, but let's say urgent business need.
Yeah.
What should they check first, especially if they're borrowing from a financial institution?
Cost of funds. So whenever you are, if it's an urgent business need, I'm assuming it's a legitimate business need. It's a business you're running, right? So you first have to figure out, can this legitimate business and this business need pay for whatever funds I am going to require to be lent? And if it cannot, then you're just compounding your problem by going to a finance institution. Because even if you are able to scale through the hurdle and get the funds, you are liable to pay those funds at an increased cost because there is the interest, there is the cost of funds. And the cost of funds is not that we sit down and just decide we want the cost of funds to be high. The reason cost of funds is high in Nigeria is because that's the cost of funds that we have to pay as well. So we have to provide a return to our borrowers and our shareholders, and those funds are not free, which is why we have to then put a margin on it, and that is the lending rate we can then extend. It's really that simple. It's nothing too complicated. So if you as a business want to come and approach a finance house for those purposes, also keep in mind your business needs to also be able to carry its own side of the cost of funds and be able to generate a profit. Because if you come take a loan from us and you end up in a loss making position, you should have never taken that loan in the first place and just stayed where you were. Sorry to I don't know if you had anything.
Yeah, so one of the things we look at when we're trying to borrow or when we want to borrow people money is their margins. If your margin cannot repay that loan, the chances of we approving that loan is very, very slim because there's no point you paying us with all that you're going to earn because to get to a point you will not be able to afford it again and we are both at loggerheads. So you should be able to do your maths to know that you can afford this loan. That is apart from repaying the loan, can you pay if you have staff, can you pay their salaries, can you pay yourself, can you sort out the bill of your business? Maybe you need to buy data, you need to buy for those different things. They should be the margin should be sweet enough to afford the loan because even apart from paying the interest on the loan at the beginning of the loan, there are some charges you pay before you can access the loan. So you should be able to cater for all this, and after you have catered for it, there's still some money left for you to continue your business.
Okay, so let me just stay with you, and I want to ask another question, a little more realistic. So, say someone is owing, and maybe not even a financial institution, you're just owing your friend, and you have about 6 months to pay, or let's say 2 years to pay, and then you made a substantial amount. What would be the first course of action? Would it be to repay the loan, or you can invest the money and then repay the loan when you have, your interest? What would be the right thing to do?
So money can be very tricky, right? So to answer that question, I would say you should repay part of the loan. You have 2 years. On the other hand, having a loan for a very long term is not always palatable because the longer your loan term or tenor, the more interest you're going to pay. But if it's from a friend, I'm assuming maybe the interest is not much,
Yeah.
right? So, but you could reduce your exposure to that friend. And let's say you have to pay back 1 million in 2 years and you got a bulk money of, say, 2 million. You could also send 500,000 to your friend, right? And you know that you have some breathing space to do other things.
Yeah.
And the friend also knows that this, my
You're
guy, is
committed.
credit worthy.
Yeah.
And if there's another reason for you to borrow again, you could easily go back to that friend and the friend will not have doubts about borrowing money. So just to be able to have money to do more than one thing, you could pay a chunk of that debt and use your money for other things also.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to confirm, do we have more questions? We have one more question. If you have any questions, please send them in because we're about wrapping up. So the next question says, can we get tips on stocks to start with as beginners?
So I don't know that I am a stock picker per se. Um, so
You said you like boring investments.
yeah, I lean towards the more boring investments. But in terms of um, picking individual stocks, I wouldn't necessarily call out any stocks because I don't want to go into trouble. It's my regulator. Um, um, I would say you need to look out for a number of things. First of all, what are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to achieve passive income, if you're trying to do something similar to what fixed income instruments like what we do at Nolt would be doing for you, then look for stocks that are strong companies with strong balance sheets, with low debt, and most importantly, that are dividend paying. They have a track record of paying their dividends. Over this last dividend cycle, a lot of people were talking about how the banks, for example, were paying dividends, how some of the oil companies, the large oil companies, were paying dividends. Those are the ones that you should be looking at, because what you want is you do not just want in unfortunately in the on the NGX, if that's what we're looking at, if we're talking about Nigerian stocks, maybe we can actually open it up to foreign markets as well, which I can also speak to after this. But if you're talking about the NGX, then you want to make sure that you are looking at grade A premium tier um, stocks that are, especially when you're a beginner. Boring is always best when you're a beginner, that are known, proven, and have a track record. So, I mean, the banks, I'm not calling individual banks because I'm not telling anybody to buy any particular stock. I'm not calling individual banks out, but that the banks that you know and you have been hearing for years are very good with in terms of paying dividends. You can start with that on the NGX side. If you're going to buy stocks, because I know that's their apps, their ways by which Nigerian can now buy stocks in foreign markets. So I'm going to talk about the New York Stock Exchange just as an example. When you get to a market that big and that broad, you do not want to be picking individual stocks because you don't know the individual stocks and you don't know how they're going to perform, and they move so quickly you can get burnt from moment to moment. So what you then should do if you're looking at those kinds of markets is you should be looking at the index. By buying an index fund or an ETF, what you're doing is you're betting that the entire market is going to move up over a period of time. That's not where you're looking for immediate returns, because those returns don't jump up 10% in a day. That's not how it works. Those returns creep up over time. If you look at the history of the New York Stock Exchange over the last 100 years, it's always guaranteed to go up given a long enough period of time. It doesn't necessarily go up every year, year on year, but if you are patient and your capital is patient as well, if you're planning to grow for the future, then it is going to grow up over time. That is just what has been proven over and over and over again. Like I said, the data goes back over 100 years. So if you're looking at those kinds of markets, then that's where you should be looking. If you're looking in Nigeria, then just already.
So just to also add to what he said, if you're looking to buy in Nigerian stocks, it's always advisable. Like, well, you should always do your research right before you place your cash. But it's always advisable to also buy stocks of companies that are sort of essentials, like things that people use daily, right? Like you said, I don't want to mention, but things that we can't do without. Those are the kind of companies that you can bet upon, and also check their history for a period of 3 to 5 years to see how they have performed before you place your cash.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Do we have any more questions? Okay. I think we've even run out of time. But very quickly, just to, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I just want you, if you didn't get anything, remember that there's never a perfect time to start. Now is a good time to start. Whenever you get, and for those who feel, okay, I'm unemployed right now, this is the best time to hear this, because now you're better prepared for when the money starts to come in, which it will. I'm a prophetess. But when the money starts to come in. So it's very important that you take note of all of these things that we've said, and you have nothing to prove. There's so much that I could say, so many salient points that we have gotten from this conversation, and it's thanks to our finance experts. So a big thank you to Mr. Robert Ijiriri. Mr. Robert is the Executive Director of Nolt Finance and Company Limited, and of course Mr. Toluwalashe Arowojolu, the Head of Credit, Nolt Finance Company Limited as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for breaking this down and being very realistic with your answers. We appreciate that. And I mean, it's been a pleasure. Thanks to be too. It's not easy, to
Thank you.
put myself on the spot like that and expose myself. So, I mean, thank you for joining us. This is one of the, and if you're thinking of investment saving, you need more financial advice. Nolt Finance is the best place, to get all of that. Do also follow Nolt Finance for more of conversations like this and financial advisory services. If you don't know where to start or you're confused, Nolt Finance is the best place. So make sure that you are, whatever you're doing, you're earning, you're saving, you're spending, make sure that investment is also a priority for you. And you need people to hold your hands when you do that. So thank you so much for joining. My name is Blessings Mosugu. And don't forget, Nolt Finance is a financial institution that operates as a licensed institution under the Central Bank of Nigeria. So you've got nothing to worry about. We have come to the end of the conversation. Let's talk money. And hopefully this is a continuous conversation, because it was very insightful, and I think I'm going to go to correct some of my mistakes now after we're done speaking. So thank you so much for joining, and thanks to our finance experts. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And don't forget, think investment, think saving, think borrowing the right way, and think for a future plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.